What's going on, Lax All-Stars? Today, you're going to learn how to string a single string traditional pocket. Boom! Let's get right into it. Let's start off with talking about leathers and sidewall. You got 4 leathers, all with the rough side back, smooth side in the front. Also got 2 sidewalls. You can see I leave that bottom hole open, and then basically I skip 1 to give me 6 sidewall loops. On the other side, I leave the top hole open, and that's going to be for my crosslace, and then I go all the way down to the bottom, basically mimicking the same pattern on the right side, on the left, but the left side is 1 hole lower. So the entire sidewall drops down by 1 hole. At the leathers, I've got those peeled back around the bottom. And as you can see, all you have to do is insert the leather in the bottom of the stick and pull it back up around the top. That gives you a little bit more depth to your pocket. It's nice and clean, comes out very well. Then you can wrap your leathers around the front, tie them off. Of course, then you're going to untie them. And you're going to loosen up your middle leathers probably by about 1.5 inches. The outer leathers a little bit less. You can see that those two are very even. They're going to run on the same parallel track. So pull the outer leathers out by maybe 1/2 inch, and that's your basic setup. Now you're going to take your piece of crosslace. I usually start out with about 20 feet, and you're going to put it through that bottom hole. Tie it off, and you're ready to start. You're going to go up, over, across the leather, then underneath the leather, and then back up around that same piece of crosslace, pull it all the way through. When you get it done, it should look like that. Now you're going to go over the sidewall, then back under the sidewall, and back under that same piece of crosslace, and pull that all the way through. When it does, that's what you're going to get. Now, you're going to keep doing this process the entire way up the head, of going over the leather and then back under the crosslace, and then going over the sidewall and back under the crosslace. This is going to get you a traditional knot. It's a basic interlock, and you'll see it as we come down. So as we finish the top side, you can see I've got about 1 inch of crosslace per knot, and I'm ready to move on to the next. So I'm going to go through the top of that leather, push the string through, and pull it to the other side. You'll notice I've got 6 sidewall loops. This is also a 6-diamond traditional. It's not a coincidence. The number of sidewall loops you create if you use 1 piece of crosslace connection will pretty much dictate how many diamonds you have in your traditional pocket. Now again, even though I'm not going up the leather, I'm going down the leather, I still go over the leather and then back under the piece of crosslace on the way down. Now I need to fit my piece of string through this loop, and this is really important. There's a little loop that gets created there. So while you're going over the leather, you need to go through that loop and then back under the crosslace. Even if you get a kink, make sure you pull it out. Take your time to make sure that you have approximate 1-inch sections of crosslace between each leather. Now you're going to go back over the leather and back around the crosslace, each time creating a loop. That way, when you come back up the next leather, you've got something to attach it to, and your pocket will shift around. So again, you're going through that really small hole. This is an important knot. You're going to have to try it again and again. Make sure it looks right. If the laces are crossed, it looks wrong. You got to go back and do it again. So knot placement, tension, all of those things are very important, but actually stringing your knots correctly may be the most important thing. Now, I'm going to jump over a little bit. Once you get to the bottom, this is a different way of tying things off. I loop around the leather. I don't like to cut my leathers because I feel like that corrupts them and eventually they break. So what I do is I basically just tie a little loop knot around the bottom of the leather, and I leave a bunch of slack on both sides of the knot. Now you can see I've already done this on the leather to the right, and now I'm doing it on the final leather. But we'll jump back to the middle of the pocket, but I wanted to show you how to do that knot. I'll show you again why that's important later. Now, after you've gone down and you come back up, again, you're ready to go through the top of the leather. So find that hole, get that string through there, and pull all of your tension through. Again, it's really important to make sure that each piece of crosslace is about 1 inch. So whenever I see some mistakes, I'll take some time to actually go back and fix it. Then again, I'm going over the leather, back under the crosslace, over the leather through the slit, through the little hole that's created. Again, pulling tension through is very important. Taking your time, making sure that you're really pretty close to where you want to be. We're going to pull out excess tension later when we string this. But for now, you really do want to try and keep it at about an inch. Now you've worked all the way down. Now you're working your way back up. Again, using one loop per sidewall loop. That gives us a 6 diamond pocket, 6 sidewalls. If you put in 12, you could skip a sidewall loop, and that would give you 6. To finish up, you're just going to work your way all the way up, and since we left our uneven sidewall hole open on the top on this side, we can go right through there and tie it off. Now you may be looking at that pocket and saying, it's pretty messy. Well, it is a little messy. It's true. You probably wouldn't want to go out and play with it just like that. But we've got a solution for that. Of course we do. It's the magic chopstick. The magic chopstick and tennis ball. This is a fantastic way to really make sure that your pocket forms correctly. I push my pocket back to approximately where I like to have it. I kind of like a mid to low pocket. And now I'm going to make sure that my center 2 leathers are really close together, because that's where the ball sits. So it's very important to make sure that those 2 leathers are tight together and that there's a nice track for the ball to come out of. Now we'll show you how to tighten down the crosslace. So I undo my leathers, run it back through the front of the head, and then back over the crosslace itself. So instead of having to put a slit in the leather or anything like that, I've actually just held down the crosslace. I've held it in place with the leathers themselves. It definitely is better than just putting a knot in the bottom of your pocket because it doesn't slip, and it's better than putting a cut in the leather because it doesn't corrupt the leather's strength. So I'm going to retie those. All done. Nice. That crosslace isn't going anywhere. At the same time, I can still pull tension through it because it's not anchored down or tied through the leather anyway. So now I'm going to focus on the middle track. That's got to be your first thing. You want to make sure that that middle track tension is right. So the first part of that is to move your knots around. Make sure that each knot is equidistant from the next knot, that tension is approximately correct. This takes a lot of time, but it's well worth it to make sure that your pocket is properly positioned, and it'll help better break in. I also use a tennis ball here, not a lacrosse ball, for a couple reasons. One, the tennis ball is a little bit squishy, so it actually gives you a little bit of slack so that your pocket doesn't, it doesn't focus around the ball too much, because that can happen and then all of a sudden the ball won't move. The other aspect that it gives is because of the fuzzy texture, it gives you a little better friction resistance. So when you're trying to pull tension through around the ball, it's a lot easier with a tennis ball than it is with a rubber lacrosse ball. So like we said, focusing on that middle track, trying to keep those 2 middle leathers nice and tight together. That's where I'm going to start pulling my tension out, and I'm going to work it to either the right or the left. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to work my way up, and once I've got all of my tension through, I can then pull it across to that next outer row between the first and second leathers. I'm going to pull that all the way down through that corresponding set of locks. Again, taking my time to make sure that knots are in the right place and that there isn't any twisting. Now I'll pull it through there, which is really quite easy, as you can see. It's simplicity, but it also works. It's really the best way I've found to tie crosslace down on a traditional head. And then I'm going to finally work it back up the sidewall. And this is where you really want to make sure that your tension is tight. Try to get that side leather relatively close to the sidewall. I mean, you don't want it too close, maybe a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch. But really focus on getting as much tension out of this area of your pocket as you can. That will reduce whip, and it will give you a really consistent throw. As you can see, this is from 3 rows. That's how much tension I pulled out. So I really pulled out almost a foot of excess tension from between the middle and outer leathers. Now I'm going to go through and start the process again, but I'm going to go on the other side. And again, focus on making sure that knot placement is right and making sure that you're pulling as much tension out as possible. You want the strings to be taut, T-A-U-T. Look it up if you don't know what it means, and not tight. Tight will get you in trouble. It'll whip and throw inconsistently. Taut means that there's pressure on it. So again, I've worked it all the way up through the top, and now I'm pulling it down to make sure that this sidewall is really tight down and ready to go. Once it's done, you can pull that excess out. Again, that's probably another 6 inches. Retie it off. Now you've got a well-constructed, well-placed, properly knotted pocket. And then you can go ahead and throw that double knot into your leathers to secure them in the front or the back of the head. This is what the pocket looks like. Pretty good. I hope yours looks the same. If it doesn't, take it out and try it again. You're going to have to string a number of traditional pockets for you to really put together a good one. So don't lose faith. Now, when I do shooting strings, I like to go over a piece of crosslace and over a leather, and then under a piece of crosslace and under a leather. So it's kind of like a double. And then I'll always attach my top shooting string through the plastic. I like a little bit of snap. If you want it to click off the plastic, I would recommend not putting it through the plastic. So basically just doing the alternate. It's a weave. Wherever I've got over, I'm going under. Wherever I've got under, I'm going over. Since I don't like it to click off the plastic, I try to make this top nylon relatively tight, and I put a no holds barred, serious double knot in there so that it doesn't move and my tension stays consistent. With my cotton shooters, I just attach it to the sidewall using the same technique. I prefer 4. You may have a different setup that you prefer. It's really a lot of trial and error, and depending on whether or not you want a high pocket, a mid pocket, or a low pocket, your shooting string setup is going to vary. So don't get too married to the aesthetics and how things look. Focus on how things throw, how things work, and that's going to get you a much better and much more consistent traditional pocket. Now with the ball out, you can see I've still got some work to do, and that work is wall ball. We hope this traditional tutorial has helped. Check out laxallstars.com for much, much more.